morning from Sugar City Studio in beautiful, historic Savannah, Georgia, on Johnson Square. North Point of View, Dr. Walter Kimsey's. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm fantastic. Okay, so last week you were quoted in a Wall Street Journal article, and of course we quote the journal often here. Mm-hmm. It's certainly my go-to every morning, and a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. Real estate, industrial real estate, and the fact that in the U.S. The inventory in seaport towns, industrial warehouse space is literally zero. It's zero in the Savannah market. Another quote on the lease rates, the Inland Empire up 25 to 30% this year. Industrial real estate, big issue. The article, if you guys want to take a look at it, was written by Paul Berger. Walter, give us the full context of that article.
Yeah, well, what Paul had noticed, and he'd seen this in several real estate companies' research, including JLL, of course, our colleagues there,
right,
that the vacancy rate had basically, is pretty close to zero. When you argue that it's 1% or 2%, it doesn't matter. What that means is there just isn't enough space.
And I would argue just, knowing what's, at least in this market, what's actually being built as spec product that's being negotiated, I'm going to say there's a negative vacancy rate. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like last year when the oil
price, May of 2020.
Yeah.
Minus $35.
The oil went negative. And so, that's the way it feels in this market. And I know it's the same in a lot of markets, especially the seaport markets across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. And what's really driving this is the retail sector, because something is moving for the vacancy rates have been dropping for a number of years. In fact, the reason I had left the engineering firm and gone to a real estate firm 5 years ago was I could see this coming.
Right.
And I warned port clients and railroad clients that we were running into two shortages. One was industrial real estate, and the other was going to be labor. And, that's why I got more focused on the kind of projects and things that I work on and working with you, Mark.
Right.
But so there was this long-term trend in place. Clearly, the change in consumer behavior during the coronavirus pandemic has accelerated that. And we probably should do a video on what the coronavirus has accelerated and changed permanently, as opposed to all the other stuff that it didn't, but people talk about it, I think, incorrectly. But that's another take for us.
Yeah, that may be 3 or 4 podcasts, right?
So I'm going to shut the door to that discussion and just kind of focus here. So what's really changed a lot is retail. It's all about e-commerce. And what's happened is bricks and mortar store companies generally, well, I don't know about everybody else's experience, but my experience with not Amazon, e-commerce companies has been okay to terrible. And some of these companies had to file Chapter 11. They reorganized, and when they come out, they have more of an omni-channel strategy, an omni-channel focus, meaning getting to the consumer through any channel available. And that means a lot more focus on e-commerce. And, e-commerce as a percentage of retail sales has shot up a lot,
yeah,
and it's staying up a lot.
Yeah.
So $1 of e-commerce sales requires more industrial square footage than $1 of bricks and mortar retail sales.
Right.
And this is a big driver of e-commerce because although Amazon has acquired the most industrial real estate in the last 4 or 5 quarters, that doesn't account for all of the surge in industrial demand.
And I know
everybody is.
And I know we've talked about this before. When these habits shift and people lock into a new technology or a new habit, i.e. your famous ice cream story in London.
Yes.
Once you guys started grocery shopping online and having it delivered,
Yeah.
It's a paradigm shift. You don't go back.
That's right. You don't go back. Now, some things you might. I get people buying groceries online in big cities like in London, but my experience in Savannah was, let's just say, terrible. I had frozen pizzas delivered to my doorstep by a driver who didn't bother to knock. And later on, I opened the door. It's July, and I got a frozen.
It's half cooked.
Exactly. Oh, I tell you, I seriously, I think one in every three shopping experiences, I had to call, the company providing the service to get something rectified.
And that goes both ways. So these companies, though, are learning a new trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're learning a new way to do business.
Right.
So there's a learning curve there.
Right.
And then there's a habit curve, and like, as you suggest, maybe it slides back down. But if they can depend on the quality and a consistent delivery system, mm-hmm. it's just a lot easier.
Right. But the problem is they had to overnight. You see, when you start a business and you're one, say, a donut shop, you do the frying and you do the dough making and everything in the same store. You get to 2, you maybe do it the same way. You get to 5 to 10. By the time you get to 10, and really, you should just stop and make all the dough in one place and distribute it from there. And what happened to the e-commerce grocery business is it went from one donut shop to 20, and they still had all the donut shops making their own, batter, and they needed to centralize. But you just couldn't convert your process that fast.
So in terms of getting back to the article, in terms of your thoughts, projections over the next 2 to 10 years, I know everybody's trying to figure out, what's next, how do we plan, investment strategies, et cetera. What is your, I don't know, maybe 2-year forecast, 5-year, 10-year forecast in terms of what that inventory looks like and what the demand side will look like?
Well, I think that the ports will continue to grow robustly. But I think when you look at, Southern California, you look around Oakland, there's practically no land left.
Right.
In Oakland, I would say there is no land left. I've been working with a couple of colleagues out there to try to make some land, but it's very hard.
That's why those lease rates have shot up this year.
Exactly.
30% in 1 year.
So you end up going to other inbound locations in the country. And Savannah has benefited from that hugely. It's
sure, 20% growth in the port last year. Amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So it's just stunning that they could absorb that. But the problem is that we also have a lot of short-term issues going on.
Right.
So the other day on the Supply Chain Leadership Association, we have our weekly executive committee call, and somebody had mentioned, and I think that's where I heard this, I'm not sure, that one company was out there with a need for 10,000 trailers to lease because their distribution centers and warehouses were completely full, and they were getting more merchandise to come in for Christmas, and I had no place to put it. And
literally on trailers.
Yeah, literally on trailers. And I couldn't remember the port city it was, but I thought, wow, that's something else.
And it wasn't necessarily on my notes, but just the thought that over the next 5 to 10 years, there are going to be winners and losers, mm-hmm. right, in the port business and in these seaport towns where, again, maybe we're biased, but it doesn't mean we're wrong, that with the Savannah port, we've got exceptional leadership.
Yeah.
And we've got guys that have a vision line of 20 to 30 years. And obviously with our past results the last couple of years, we've seen it. I guess one thing, and this is a question, but keep your eye on the leadership at each of these port cities, right? The ports themselves, because that's going to be the difference, it seems to me, in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, and the ability of the gateway leaders to work together.
Got it.
That's so critical. If you've got members of the community, fighting the port, it's not good for anybody, including not being good for the environment.
So, as you told me many times, there are multiple parts to the gateway.
Exactly.
Right.
You've got your port, the waterways, the railways, the roadways. You've got the industrial real estate, and these days, labor is part of the gateway.
Yeah, the human infrastructure.
Exactly.
Big deal. A lot going on. Hey, Walter, great being with you.
Hey, good talking.
All right, man. See you soon.
Take care.
Thanks.